Welcome to Travel Talk, where our expert magical memory planners discuss ways you can have fun, memorable, and stress-free family vacations.
Hi, well, welcome to this episode of Travel Talk. I'm so excited today to share with you one of my very good friends and a special guest of ours, Misty Griffin. She is a content creator at Magical Memory Planners, and if you follow us on our social channels, you'll see a lot of her humor and her photography and a lot of her fun stuff that she brings to the content of our social media channels. But the reason she's on our podcast today is because she's also a huge Harry Potter fan and a Universal fan. And we were talking recently about some of the fun things she's done. And she had an amazing idea that she did with her son when he turned 11. And so I thought I'd bring her on our podcast and she could share with us a little bit about that. So before we talk about what you did for his 11th birthday, explain to us, people who might not know, why is an 11th birthday so important to a Harry Potter fan?
So from the very beginning of the books and the movies, Harry receives his letter, and he is 11 years old, and his letter is informing him that he is a wizard and he needs to go to Hogwarts for magical school, for wizarding school. And so 11 years old is kind of the age for a wizard to get their letter telling them that they're a wizard and it's time to go.
Cool. So what did you do then for your son when he turned 11?
So
How did this start?
we've actually done it with two boys. My oldest one is 15 now, and we started with him. We told him that we were going to Universal for his birthday. And we're all huge Harry Potter fans in this house. So he was like, oh, cool. I'm going to be, a Wizarding World Harry Potter for my 11th birthday, like Harry was, so he already kind of put it together that we were doing this. And so we went, and what we did was basically the entire weekend was his experience. We kind of mirrored Harry's experience a little bit. We started in Diagon Alley. He got a letter. There was a letter waiting for him in the hotel. And so the entire experience was pretty much centered around the 11-year-old. And we took his siblings and they made it about him too. It was actually a lot of fun.
That's so cool. So once you got to Universal, you spent a lot of time in the Harry Potter sections. So what experiences did you do while you were there? Was Ollivanders involved, and what other experiences did you do?
Yeah, so it was great. For my oldest son, we stayed at Portofino Hotel, and I had arranged with concierge before we got there. And when we got into our room, they had balloons waiting for him and a Hogwarts letter. And the Hogwarts letter told him what supplies he needs for his first year at Hogwarts. And so, and they gave him a ticket for the Hogwarts Express, which was like Harry's ticket in the movie. And so we went straight to first thing we did was we went Diagon Alley, just like Harry did. And we went and we bought his robes and we got him. We even went to Ollivanders and, tried to weigh expectations a little bit because you don't always guarantee that the child's going to be chosen. Although for him, he was, of all things, he was the one picked. So he got to get his wand, and then we walked around Diagon Alley, and he got to have butterbeer for the first time, and which it wasn't his first time, but we pretended it was. And then we walked around with his wand and did cast spells and things like that. So
Cool. So what was your favorite memory of this whole experience of doing this for him? Like, what's the thing that stands out, or for each of them? Like, what was the thing that stood out the most as the most memorable moment?
yes. It's hard to narrow it down to just one. With Aiden, my oldest, we got lucky, and his birthday happened to fall on the celebration of Harry Potter weekend at Universal, which actually doesn't happen anymore. So his whole experience was almost like out of a fairy tale because there were characters walking around, people in cosplay, and so he got to like go up to the Weasleys and get their were made with them. And I mean, it was literally from another world. He actually got to meet the twins. And I mean, it just really was. It was insane. So, but with my other son, who is now 12, we did his last year. It was a little bit more realistic. Because it was not during that weekend since I don't have it anymore. But his was great, and it was interesting because we let him choose. We started in Diagon Alley because that's that's how the story starts, right? And then after that, we let him choose. So we're like, where do you want to go now? And the entire weekend was just Harry Potter. So, of course, we did some other things at Universal, but and in Islands of Adventure, but for the most part, we just focused on Harry Potter stuff. We also made sure that most of the time in the hotels on site, they're showing Harry Potter on some channel, so you can watch it. But this particular weekend, they weren't. So we just hooked up, our computer to the TV, and we watched it from there. So we have it playing in the background. It's just we really truly made it a Harry Potter weekend for him.
That's fun. So, if you were just doing Harry Potter then and it's a birthday celebration, how long would you recommend that you stay at Universal?
Well, a lot of it depends on, where you're coming from. We live in Florida now, so last year was really easy. I could just do a staycation. But for my oldest or my middle son, who was the first one we did this with, we were living in Colorado at the time. And so what we did was we actually stayed for 4 days just because flying, otherwise it wouldn't have really been worth it. But again, it depends on where you're coming in from. But I would suggest at least 2 to 3 days in the park just to one day, if you really want to focus on it, you could do one day in one side, then take the train and then do the next day, really focused on the second park. And then that third day can be a pool day, or, if you wanted to revisit the things, because the kids always are, oh, I want to go back and try this again, or I didn't get that spell the first time. Let's go do that again. And, or we got to have one more butterbeer before we leave. And, there's always that one more thing you got to do before you can go. And before we lived here, my kids were always, they would go back into the park and stock up on pumpkin juice. So we would literally come home with like 20 jars of pumpkin juice in our suitcase. So that was kind of their take home souvenir. But so there's always, I always suggest that extra day, that third day, just to give you time to really, no rush, just to truly enjoy it, to laugh when you can, and I don't know, that just, to me, more time is always better.
That's a good suggestion. So then, say I had a kid that was turning 11 soon, and I was thinking maybe this is something I'd want to do. Now, obviously, we would recommend calling Magical Memory Planners, and one of our Universal specialists will help with kind of working out these details. But as a parent and starting to think about these things, what is some advice or some things that you would want them to think about ahead of time, or to plan? How far in advance would they want to plan? Obviously, when your child's going to be turning 11, so you can kind of plan for that. And maybe because of when their birthday is, it can't be actually on their birthday. Maybe you have to kind of work around it a little bit. So what is some advice that you would want people to think about ahead of time?
Yeah, so I always use a travel agency. I actually use a travel agency for my oldest, and then I'm part of your agency now, so it's definitely use a travel agent. And the reason is because the information that an agent has access to is priceless. So I would have never, had I not been a travel agent at the time, I would not have known that I could call concierge at the hotel and, kind of work some magic there. Because again, we did the same thing with my second son. The hotel delivered, we actually used an outside service for my second son and had balloons delivered, but the hotel went above and beyond and actually included some candy, which I did not expect. The thing about Universal hotels is they get just as excited as you do when it comes to those special surprises. And so you'll find that they want to make it even better. You're like, oh, here's what I want to do. And they're like, well, but we can do this, and really go above and beyond, which kind of surprises you because you're like, okay, and then they want to see the pictures. Last year they were like, show us the pictures of his face, and so I ran back downstairs and showed the lady behind the desk, and they all oohed and awed. Oh, that's so fun. And and So they get just as excited too. So, again, those are the kind of things that you're, as a consumer, you may not know. And whereas the travel agents who are in the hotels and they're visiting the hotels and they're doing the trainings, they know all this inside information. It's like having it truly is having someone on the inside. So use that when you can. And as far as anything else, if it's not on their birthday, that's okay. Last year, it was not on his birthday weekend. His birthday was on a Monday and we couldn't get there the weekend before. So we went the weekend after. So, it happens and you just make it work. Harry, if you really want to get into detail, he didn't go on his birthday. He went after because the Dursleys wouldn't give him his letter. So there was a lot of time that passed before he could actually get there. So, I always, there's definitely ways you can make it work. But I think the most important part is that if your child is a reader, you read the books with them before, or have them read them on their own, whichever you guys prefer. But get them in those books, and then watch the movies together as a family, and then go, and then just have fun. And that's to me, that's the most important part.
That's awesome. So now I wish I was turning 11.
Yeah, I know. My oldest says he's like, that's not fair. He goes, there was no Wizarding World of Harry Potter when I turned 11. So he thinks he thinks that he got the shaft. So
well, maybe we'll dig through the books and find some other memorable moments.
I know. Well, we actually did let him do the wand ceremony because he was like kind of pouty about it. He's like, this isn't fair. I didn't get to do any of this stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it's, and you can always go back and redo it. One thing, I didn't mention that you must do before you go is on the Magical World of Harry Potter's website, which is the official website of Harry Potter. If you go to their website, you can choose a sorting hat or do the sorting hat ceremony. And so make sure that you do that with your child before you get there. And that way, when the hotel asks you, well, is there a certain color balloon you prefer? You can tell them the house colors. And that way they know. So for both of my sons, they sorted into Hufflepuff. And so both of their sets of balloons are yellow and black. So, which was great. And they loved it. And yeah, it really is special. And it's so funny because my youngest son, he swears he doesn't like Harry Potter, which is absurd. And we keep telling him he must not belong to us because we don't know where that came from. He was all grins and he loved it. And like the other brothers, the other two brothers were just as excited. And again, balancing those expectations, he was not chosen the first time for the wand ceremony, and we just kind of cheated and we went back through again. And he was chosen the second time. And we told him before going in, if you're not chosen, it's not a big deal. It just means someone else needs their wand quicker. And we just kind of tried to, and he's 11, so it wasn't like it wasn't like a 2-year-old in a candy store or anything. He understood. So there is that, but there's definitely ways.
Wear the button that says I'm celebrating my 11th birthday at.
Yes, he did Hogwarts. That. He had it front and center, and he still wasn't chosen. They chose 2 sets of twins, which again, we were like, it happens, and so then we came through the second time. We literally walked right out and walked right back in. And the wizard there he chose him that time. And so he was pretty excited about it. So, again, there's always ways that you can, if you're, taking your kid there, then, go through again. It's not that big a deal. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's the nice thing about having a couple of days, because if you tried to do it all in one day, then you would feel rushed and you would feel like, oh, we can't do that. So even if you ended up buying your wand in Ollivanders, you could always go through the ceremony again.
Exactly. So, exactly. And, take a good camera or have your phone ready and emptied of memory. So, or, have your memory available so you can take pictures, because you're going to want to, and you're going to want to get those moments where they're standing under the dragon and pointing their wand at the castle. And, and if you happen to go at a time when they're doing the lights on the castle, the light show, that's even better. You could do photos with your child and have them casting the spells on as the do videos, and it's really fun. And it's just the whole point in a vacation is to escape reality for a little while, and I feel like that gives you the perfect opportunity to do so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Misty, for sharing with us all your insights and about your kid's special 11th birthday, because that's super fun. And hopefully we'll be able to help more families be able to do that type of celebration. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you everyone for listening to Travel Talk.